Part 1. The Cage They Called Family. I was never the loud one in the house. That title belonged to my sister Mia, the dreamer, the risk taker, the one who always had a new idea she swore would change the world. Me, I was just Sarah. Quiet, cautious, the one who saved, who planned, who kept her head down and her job steady. And for some reason, that made me disappointed. Dinner that night was a storm I should have seen coming. I sat there, poking at my plate of overcooked broccoli, when Mia dropped her latest bombshell. "So, I've been thinking," she began, all casual like she wasn't about to flip my life upside down. "If I could get just a little more capital, the VR travel app could go live by next quarter." Mom looked up with that hopeful twinkle in her eye. "Oh, that sounds promising, sweetie." Dad nodded. "You've always been our little entrepreneur." Then Mia turned to me. "Sarah, I know you've been saving a lot, and I was thinking maybe you could help. Just this once." Silence. I felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on me, like spotlights burning into my skin. I can't," I said quietly. "That money's for my future, for my move, for school." "Seriously?" Mia cut in, her voice sharp. "You'd just let your sister's dream die like that?" Mom joined in. "Honey, it's not like she's asking for everything. You can always save again, but an opportunity like this..." "No one ever asked what I'm working toward," I whispered, more to myself than them. "No one even knows what I do all day." Dad's tone turned stern. "Don't be selfish, Sarah. Your sister has passion. She's trying." "And I'm not?" I snapped, my voice shaking. "I've worked for everything I have. I've spent years building a career in science while you all pretend it doesn't matter. I have plans too. Just because I don't shout them doesn't mean they're not real." The table went quiet, not out of understanding, just disapproval. Mia scoffed. "Whatever, keep your little office job. I'll figure it out on my own, like always." And with that, I felt something inside me break. After dinner, I went up to my room. I sat on the floor for a long time, watching the moonlight hit the carpet. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe you, but presses in on your chest. I packed in silence. Just a backpack, laptop, a few notebooks. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I just walked out. For the first time in my life, I didn't ask for permission. Part 2. The city that let me breathe again. Seattle smelled like rain, not the cold, bitter kind we used to get back home, but something softer, like beginnings. I moved into a small studio apartment on the 5th floor of a tiled brick building. The walls were thin, the heater groaned like it was alive, and the windows barely closed all the way. But it was mine. No footsteps outside my door, no one asking for favors, no one calling me selfish for saying no. I started my new job at a mid-sized AI company nestled in the tech district, Ardent Technologies. My office title was Machine Learning Research Associate, which sounded fancier than it paid, but I didn't care. I was working on something that mattered, algorithms that could learn, code that could predict, real impact. My manager, Lucas, was intense but fair. He gave me space. The team was brilliant, and for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I worked late most nights, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd bring home takeout, spread papers across my floor, and chase ideas like they were wild animals needing to be tamed. It was exhausting, and I loved it. Some nights I'd stepped out on the fire escape with a cup of tea and just watch. The city moved like it didn't care who I was. It didn't ask me to prove anything. And in that anonymity, I started to heal. There was no one to judge my silence here. No one remind me that I wasn't fun like Mia. I began to realize quiet wasn't a flaw. It was a way of listening, of seeing things others missed. 3 months in, Lucas called me into his office. I thought I was in trouble. "Sarah," he said, pointing to a whiteboard filled with red scribbles. "Is this your anomaly detection model?" I froze. Yes, I was running tests on it after hours. He nodded slowly. "It flagged an efficiency pattern in our traffic simulation data. You may have just solved a problem that stumped us for over a year." I blinked. "I did?" A grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Keep going." That night I didn't sleep. Not from anxiety, from joy. I danced barefoot in my tiny apartment, tea spilling on my notebook pages. It wasn't much, it wasn't fame, but it was mine. Something real, something earned. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for who I was. Part 3. When the world finally looked my way. Success didn't come all at once. It came in lines of clean, functional code, in test simulations that didn't crash, in a prototype that didn't just work. It adapted. What I built was small at first, just an AI pattern recognition model that could predict high-risk intersections using citywide traffic data. But someone noticed, then someone else, and suddenly my name was being floated in meetings I wasn't even in. Lucas walked by my desk one morning with a quiet smile and dropped a thick file in front of me. "You're being submitted for the National Urban Safety Project. Your model's going to pilot in 2 major cities." I stared at the file like it might vanish if I touched it. "This is real?" I asked. "It's more than real," he said. "Get ready. Your life's about to speed up." And it did. I was invited to contribute to panel discussions, speak at internal conferences, even give a tech talk that was streamed company-wide. I didn't love being on stage, but I didn't need to be loud. I just needed to be clear, honest, and I was. By the end of that quarter, journalists were calling. Trade blogs ran a piece titled "The Silent Mind Behind Safer Streets." I hated the title, but I knew what they meant. That's when the messages start. Mia, Mom, Dad, all of them suddenly remembering my number. At first, it was just a "Hi, sweetie, saw your name on a tech blog. So proud." Then, "We'd love to catch up. Let us know when you're free." Then, "Mia's been asking about you. She wants to make things right." I didn't answer. I'd stabbed my phone with a hollow weight in my chest. I told myself I was just busy. Too many deadlines. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, I didn't know how to talk to them anymore. I was no longer the same person who sat at that dinner table, quietly taking blame, and I wasn't sure they'd want the versions of me that had grown without them. Sometimes I'd imagine what I'd say if I picked up. Would they really be proud or just interested in what I could offer now that I had something to show? Still, a part of me wanted to believe the best, that maybe Maybe they saw me now. Not just Mia's older sister or the family's quiet disappointment, but me. But I couldn't afford to be naive again, so I let the calls ring out. I read the messages, but I never typed back. And quietly, I kept building. Because for the first time, the world was listening, and I was finally ready to speak. Part 4. The Past at My Door. It was a Saturday when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was halfway through debugging a training module and hadn't even brushed my hair. When I opened the door, I froze. Mia, standing there in designer sunglasses and an oversized trench coat like she was late to a movie premiere. "Hi," she said, too brightly. "You look different." I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" She laughed like we were old friends, not sisters who hadn't spoken in over a year. "I was in town for a startup expo. Thought I'd drop by, now that you're some kind of tech rock star." I didn't invite her in, but she walked past me anyways, heels clicking across my hardwood floor like she still owned the place between us. She glanced around my small apartment. Cute, very, humble. I folded my arms. "Why are you really here?" She sighed and dropped the act. "Look, I screw up. We all did. I've been thinking a lot about the way we treated you. You didn't deserve it." I wanted to believe her, but then her bag unzipped and out came a pitch deck. "This is the one," she said, eyes gleaming. "A VR learning platform for kids. Think education meets immersion. I just need capital to get the prototype moving, and with your name attached, it'll take off." There it was. That family twist in my gut. She wasn't here for me. She was here for access. "I can't help you, Mia," I said softly but firmly. Her smile faded. "What do you mean? You have the money, the connections. I also have boundaries and a life I built without anyone's help." Her expression hardened. "Wow, so this is who you are now? Cold, arrogant, just like the people you used to complain about." I didn't flinch. "No, this is who I've always been. You just never saw her." Mia stood in silence for a moment, then grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "You're not the only one with dreams, Sarah," she said over her shoulder. "Just remember who cheered for you before the world knew your name." But that was the thing. No one had. She slammed the door behind her. I stood there for a long time, staring at the wood grain. It was strange. I thought I'd felt angry, but I didn't. I just felt clean, like something toxic had finally been removed from the air around me. But I knew this wasn't the end. Not with my parents still out there. Not with the guilt they'd surely try next. And part of me still feared how much power their voices held, how easily they could slip beneath my skin. Part 5. The quiet that finally belonged to me. The messages came in waves after Mia left. My mother first. "Sarah, I heard Mia came to see you. She said you were cold. That's not how I raised you." Then my father. "Family means forgiveness, sweetheart. Don't let success turn you into someone who forgets where she came from." Each word designed to sting, to remind me I was still their daughter, that I owed them something, and for a moment I almost believed them, that maybe I was ungrateful, that maybe setting boundaries made me cruel, that maybe I had changed and not for the better. But then I remembered the dinners where my silence was a target. The years they only looked at me through the lens of what I wasn't, not as loud, not as bold, not as useful. I remember the way they defended Mia when she insulted my life and called me selfish when I said no for the first time. And I remembered how it felt to build something without their approval, how powerful, how peaceful that had been. Still, the doubt lingered, so I reached out to someone who never asked for anything from me, Professor Evelyn, my old mentor. I hadn't spoken to her in months, but when she picked up, her voice still carried the warmth of someone who'd always seen me. I told her everything, the visit, the guilt, the pressure. She listened. No interruptions, no judgment. Then she said, "You know, Sarah, sometimes the only way to love yourself is to stop trying to be lovable to the people who never saw you clearly." I sat with that for a long time after the call. That night, I opened my phone and went to my emergency contacts list. For years, my parents were at the top, out of habit, out of guilt, out of fear that not including them meant I was hurtless. I stared at their names. Then I deleted both. Not out of hate, but because they didn't belong in that space anymore. They weren't my lifeline. I was. Weeks passed. I poured myself into work, into mentorship, into things that filled me instead of drained me. I built new relationships, colleagues who respected me, friends who knew me, people who didn't need me to shrink to keep the peace. Then came the day of the International AI Conference. I stood backstage in a navy blazer and flats that didn't hurt, holding a remote clicker in my damn hand. My heart raced, not from fear, but from readiness. I stepped onto the stage, thousands of eyes, cameras flashing, and then silence. I took a breath and I spoke about human-centered AI, about empathy in design, about systems that predict danger, not to profit but to protect. I spoke not like someone trying to prove her worth, but like someone who already knew it. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Somewhere I knew my family was watching, maybe with pride, maybe with regret. But it didn't matter anymore. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't performing for anyone. Later that evening, I stood outside the new company building, a tall glass tower reflecting the city lights. My name was on the leadership roster now, head of AI research. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, but I was free, and that was everything.